GS-15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. You want me to turn it over? Okay. Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, SC Code -16-23-0490, CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00594. The State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3/2/23.
Thank you.
What if I told you that losing your mother and brother in a single night was only the beginning of your nightmare? That grieving under the world's microscope would become your daily reality, where every facial expression was dissected, every silence questioned, and every attempt at normalcy twisted into suspicion? What if the price of survival was carrying a legacy you never asked for, defending a father the world had already condemned, and living in a courtroom where your pain was presented as evidence of something darker? This is the story of Buster Murdaugh, the son who didn't pull a trigger but became a target anyway, the brother who lost everything but was given no space to mourn, the young man forced to translate a world of lies he never created, all while millions watched, judged, and decided who he was before he could figure it out himself. Before we unravel this story, if you're captivated by cases that expose the human cost behind headlines, cases that make you question everything you thought you knew about guilt, innocence, and the impossible positions people are forced into, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because here at Dark Trail Files, we don't just tell you what happened. We show you what it costs. In this case, it cost Buster Murdaugh everything he had left. June 7th, 2021, a date that would fracture the Murdaugh family forever. 22-year-old Paul Murdaugh and his mother, 52-year-old Maggie Murdaugh, were found shot to death near the dog kennels at Moselle, the family's sprawling 1,700-acre hunting property in South Carolina's Low Country. The scene was devastating. Paul had been shot twice with a shotgun at close range. Maggie had been struck 4 or 5 times with a .300 blackout rifle. The violence was personal, brutal, and executed with weapons that belonged to the family itself. This wasn't a random attack. This was intimate destruction. For Buster Murdaugh, the phone call came late that night. He was living between Columbia and Rock Hill at the time, staying with his girlfriend's family. His father's voice came through the phone, shattered and desperate, telling him what no child should ever hear. His mother and brother were gone, murdered. shot dead on their own property. Buster testified later that his first reaction was shock. Complete, paralyzing shock. He and Brooklyn White immediately packed their bags and drove to Moselle. When they arrived, the property was swarming with law enforcement. Yellow crime scene tape. Flashing lights. The kennels where his mother and brother had died just hours before. Buster stood on that land, trying to process the impossible. His family had been hunting on this property for generations. Now, it was a murder scene. In an instant, Buster's world collapsed. But unlike most people who experience unimaginable tragedy, Buster wouldn't be allowed to grieve in private. He wouldn't be given time to process. He wouldn't even be given the dignity of mourning without an audience. Because 3 days after the murders, Buster's grandfather, Randolph Murdaugh III, died. The patriarch of the family, the man who had held the Murdaugh name with pride for decades, passed away at age 81. 3 funerals in less than a week. Maggie and Paul's service on Saturday. Randolph's on Sunday. The weight of generational legacy, fresh grief, and public scrutiny all colliding at once. Buster was 25 years old. He had just lost half his family, and the cameras were already rolling. What nobody tells you about public tragedy is how quickly your grief stops belonging to you, how your tears are measured, how your composure is questioned. For Buster, every moment from that night forward would be observed, recorded, and analyzed by millions who had never met him but felt entitled to judge every second of his pain. Strangers on the internet would debate whether he cried enough, whether he looked devastated enough, whether his loyalty to his father meant he knew something. The truth is, Buster couldn't win. There was no correct way to grieve when the world was watching. And the world was definitely watching. To understand Buster's impossible position, you have to understand what it meant to be a Murdaugh in South Carolina. For nearly a century, the Murdaugh name represented power, influence, and legal dominance. 3 generations, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., Jr., and the third, served as circuit solicitor, controlling prosecution across 5 counties from 1920 to 2006. They didn't just practice law, they were the law. The family's legal dynasty began with Randolph Murdaugh Sr., who was elected as the 14th Circuit Solicitor in 1920. He held that position until his death in 1940. His son, nicknamed Buster like the current Buster, took over and served for an astonishing 46 years until 1986. Then Randolph Murdaugh III continued the legacy until 2006. That's 86 consecutive years of one family controlling criminal prosecution in the region. The area became known as Murdaugh Country. Their influence was absolute. The family also ran a powerful law firm, originally called Peters Murdaugh Parker Eltroth and Dietrich. They specialized in personal injury litigation and built a fortune representing clients in high-stakes cases. The Murdaughs weren't just lawyers, they were a dynasty. And Buster was born into the weight of that expectation. He was the eldest son, the one meant to carry the name forward. He followed the expected path, graduated from Wofford College in 2018, enrolled at the University of South Carolina School of Law, the same institution that had shaped his father and grandfather. The plan was clear. Buster would become a lawyer. He would join the family firm. He would uphold the legacy. But in 2019, Buster was dismissed from law school. The official reason was academic performance, but later revelations showed the deeper truth. His father had paid a lawyer named Butch Bowers $60,000 to lobby the dean for Buster's readmission. In recorded jail calls, Alec pressured Buster about returning to school, saying there wouldn't be another chance. The school eventually agreed not to readmit him immediately, leaving Buster's legal career in limbo. Even Buster's failures became part of his father's crimes. Even his struggles were weaponized. Buster didn't choose this pressure. He didn't ask to be the heir to a corrupted empire. But when everything collapsed, he was the one left holding the pieces. When Buster took the stand during his father's trial, prosecutors didn't just want answers about guns. They wanted him to explain a world he had inherited but never controlled. They wanted him to account for weapons, property, and a lifestyle that had been built long before he was born.
And where were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day. Left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun room.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
He would. Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else, and sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it, and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
Did at some point in time you and Paul receive 300 blackouts for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And we say black and tan. What part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock, maybe?
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016?
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
So every time in your presence Paul was using a 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been discussion, and the jury has seen a 12-gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized, so it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And why's your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on it?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way you know that's your gun.
That's right.
I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Did you? Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load that gun with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch?
Yes, sir.
And why would you do that?
I do that because when I go turkey hunting, the goal is to, get the turkey close to you and shoot it in the first try. But if I were to miss and the turkey goes running away and I try to shoot it again, I put a larger shell behind the smaller one for that.
He had never loaded a shotgun with buckshot followed by birdshot, the exact combination used to kill his brother Paul. He'd never seen anyone do that. He couldn't explain why someone would. But the questions kept coming, as if Buster held the key to understanding violence he didn't commit. The family owned many firearms. Paul was careless with them, often leaving guns around the property or in his unlocked truck. Buster would have to track them down. 2 custom blackout rifles had been Christmas gifts to the brothers in 2016. Paul's was stolen in 2017. The replacement was never found, and that missing rifle, it became central to the prosecution's case against his father. Buster didn't inherit wealth. He inherited consequences. Every financial crime his father committed, every lie his father told, every weapon his father owned, all of it became Buster's burden to explain. Not because he had answers, but because he was the only Murdaugh left standing. January 25th, 2023. The trial of Alex Murdaugh began in Walterboro, South Carolina. The small town became the center of national attention. News crews from across the country descended on the Colleton County Courthouse. The trial was live-streamed, every moment broadcast to millions. And sitting behind the defendant, day after day, was Buster Murdaugh. His girlfriend Brooklyn White by his side. The cameras trained on his every move. For 6 weeks, Buster sat in that courtroom. He listened to forensic pathologists describe his brother's wounds in excruciating detail. He watched as prosecutors displayed photos of his mother's body. He heard witness after witness testify about his father's lies, his father's debts, his father's crimes. And through it all, cameras captured his reactions. Every time he shifted in his seat, every time he wiped his eyes, every time his expression changed. The internet became obsessed with analyzing Buster. Reddit threads dissected his body language. Twitter debated whether he believed his father was guilty. YouTube videos zoomed in on his face, looking for clues. He wasn't allowed to just be his son mourning his family. He became a character in a true crime narrative, and the audience demanded he perform grief in a way they found acceptable. When the defense called Buster to testify, the courtroom went silent. Here was a son, speaking on behalf of the father accused of murdering his mother and brother. Every word he spoke would be weighed, every emotion measured, and every answer scrutinized for signs of loyalty or cracks in his belief.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh Jr., M-U-R-D-A-U-G-H. I go by Buster.
Mr. Murdaugh, is your father sitting over here at the defense table?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where you born, where you raised, where'd you go to school?
Right. So my name is Buster, 26 years old. I live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I was born in Savannah and lived in Beaufort for about 2 years when I was a little child. We moved to Hampton in about 2000, and I grew up in Hampton, went to Wade Hampton High School. And after high school, I went to a small college in Spartanburg called Wofford.
Is your mother Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And your brother Paul?
Yes, sir.
When you moved to Hampton, do you remember how old you were when you first moved to Hampton?
Three or four.
Okay. And did you live in Hampton in a house in the city limits?
Yes, sir.
The town limits?
Yes, sir.
And you did that with your mom and dad and brother for how long?
For around 20 years.
Right. What schools did you go to coming up through in Hampton County? What you go to grade school?
Went to Ben Hazel Primary School, Hampton Elementary School, North District Middle School, Wade Hampton High School.
Okay. And as you were growing up, what were your interests, Buster?
Sports, playing sports, doing things outdoors, hunting, fishing.
And was your father involved in those interests with you?
Yes, sir.
And was your mother also?
Yes, sir.
And in what way?
Well, my father coached every little league team I played on up until I started playing for the schools in which had a coach.
And what about Paul? What were his interests growing up?
Paul's interests were outdoors, mostly. Hunting, fishing, playing around in the woods.
Right. Did he also play sports at times?
He did. Yeah, he played basketball and baseball.
Did your dad coach him as well?
He did.
And would your parents attend all of your and Paul's sporting events as you're growing up?
Every game. And it was a rarity for them to miss one, and then if they had to, they would call and explain. And
right. And at some point in time, did your parents buy this property off Moselle Road?
yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
Right around 2012, I think. I would have been a sophomore in high school.
And when that property was first purchased, did you move out to Moselle, or are you still living in Hampton?
So we had a house in Hampton and also purchased the property at Moselle, which had a house. And for the beginning stages of owning Moselle, Hampton was still working as our primary residence. But I believe it was Hurricane Matthew, or one of the hurricanes came through and blew a bunch of pine trees over on the house. So it had to get work done to it. And from that point, we moved out from Hampton to Moselle while the house was getting fixed. And more or less, it just kind of, it never transitioned back to Hampton. It just almost like Moselle became the primary residence.
And during this time, did your family also have a house at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
How frequently would you stay at the house at Edisto?
Very frequently during the summertime.
Okay.
Almost every weekend.
And when your family essentially relocated to the Moselle property, making it primary residence, were you still living at home in high school, or remember how old you were at that point in time?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. Will you say that again?
Were you living at home at that point in time? Was that while you were still in high school or
Yes.
school? You remember when you transitioned to Moselle and started staying there basically full time during the school year?
So when I was still in high school, we were living in the Hampton house, and then I'd gone off to college.
Okay.
Which is when the stuff happened, and they moved out to Moselle. So yeah, I was living at college.
And when did you go off to college?
2014.
Okay, so sometime after around 2014, family relocated to Moselle for the most part
That's
because of the hurricane damage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell the jury a little bit about the Moselle property. I know they've heard a fair amount, but I think you probably know it better than anybody.
Yeah, so the Moselle property it's roughly 1,700 acres, and a lot of that is really not even accessible. It's a lot of swamplands, a lot of stuff that you just, no road systems or anything like that, but a big portion of it is has road systems and everything, and it's a big property. It's broken up into several different parcels that border each other, and we have 20 some odd deer stands, dove fields, duck ponds, just all over the property. So
What type of hunting did you and your brother and your father do at Moselle?
everything: deer, duck, quail, dove, hogs.
You have a duck pond?
We have a duck pond.
Okay. And the hunting was, did you have a lot of friends come out and hunt as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the jury has seen a aerial view of the property, and there's a main house, shed, kennels, and then there's a house sort of right on Moselle Road. What do you call that house?
That's the cabin.
The cabin. And did you live in the cabin with friends over summers at some point in time?
I did. The summer of my sophomore year, after my sophomore year, me and two of my buddies lived in the cabin.
Okay. And who are those buddies?
Nolan Tootin and Rogan Gibson.
Okay. And the so we've We can get more of this. We've heard about hogs and pigs on the property. Can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
About the hogs?
Yes, sir.
We had a lot of hogs, and if you don't know, hogs are very destructive to a piece of property. You know, we plant food plots for the deer, plant the fields for the doves and the ducks, and they basically go through and ruin it all. So, given the high population of hogs, we, would frequently go out and hunt them, try to cut the numbers down a little bit.
Were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day. Left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun room.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else, and sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it, and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
Did at some point in time you and Paul receive 300 blackouts for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And when you say black and tan, what part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock, maybe.
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016?
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Trial? Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
So every time in your presence Paul was using a 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's, I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been just discussion, and the jury has seen a 12-gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized, so it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And did you, why does your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on it?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way that's your gun.
That's right.
Okay. I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load?
Buster took the stand on February 21st, 2023. He wore a dark suit. His hands were steady, but his voice carried the weight of everything he'd endured. He wasn't there as a neutral witness. He was there to defend his father. He described his father as patient, never violent. He talked about family disagreements that never escalated. He said there was no violence in their home. He painted a picture of a normal family, one that hunted together, ate dinner together, attended baseball games together. Just days before the murders, Buster, his father, Maggie, and Brooklyn had gone to University of South Carolina baseball game. It was a normal, fun weekend. And then, days later, half of them were dead. Buster talked about phone calls on June 7th, the night of the murders. He and his father spoke around 9:08 p.m. His father sounded normal, nothing unusual. Then, later that night, around 10 p.m., his father called again. This time, his voice was unrecognizable, shattered. Buster remembered the words, "I was in shock." He also gave the jury what the defense hoped was clarity in an ongoing debate about what Alex said in a recorded interview after the murders. In the video, prosecutors claimed Alex said, "I did him so bad," when talking about Paul. Buster stood firm. He knew his father's voice. He heard they did him so bad. The difference between they and I became a battleground. One word, one interpretation, everything hanging in the balance. One of the most painful moments of Buster's testimony came when prosecutors asked him to walk through the moment his life shattered. Not to understand his grief, but to establish a timeline. To pin down when he knew, as if knowing the exact moment mattered more than the weight of what he lost.
Out that your mom and brother were murdered.
But eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle. Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some t-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put it in the bag and left.
Why were you doing the packing?
Just trying to help him. He was so upset. We were all upset, but just trying to expedite the process of getting Alameda.
When did you first find out that
He explained how he and Brooklyn packed their bags and drove to Moselle. How he stood on the property where his mother and brother had been killed. How the community turned on them almost immediately. How his brother had received threats on social media after the boat crash that killed Mallory Beach. How people would confront Paul in public. How his mother stopped grocery shopping in Hampton, afraid of judgment, and started shopping in Walterboro instead. The Murdaugh family had gone from untouchable to pariahs, and Buster felt it every day. He also testified about security concerns after the murders. Before returning to Rock Hill, he and his father discussed threats to Buster's safety. But Buster refused extra protection. He didn't want to carry a gun. He didn't want a security detail following him around. He just wanted to survive, quietly, privately. But privacy was no longer an option. Buster also testified that he had no knowledge of his father's financial crimes. He found out around the same time everyone else did, Memorial Day weekend in September 2021. He only knew a little bit about the opioid addiction. These weren't just questions about what Buster knew. They were questions designed to implicate, to suggest complicity, to make the son responsible for the father's deceit. The question was straightforward. The answer was complicated. Because how do you admit you saw the signs without feeling like you failed to stop what was coming? How do you say you knew just enough to worry, but not enough to act, and live with that forever?
excuse me, Buster, were you aware that your dad had a opioid addiction?
A little bit. I knew a little bit about the usage of pills.
What did you know about it?
I knew that either my brother and mom had found them at some point, and then told them like, "Hey, we found these." And I want to say the 2018 around Christmas, he went to a detox facility after Christmas, and that was my knowledge of it. Thought that handled it, and then there were a couple more times after the fact where they would kind of go into this finding pills all that stuff. And then he did a few kind of like at home, just self-detoxed a couple times, and, thought, once he did that, get off of them. But that was kind of my general knowledge about it all.
You thought he had beat it?
That's right. Yes, sir.
And when he was confronted about his pills, what was his attitude?
I don't know for sure, because I wasn't there when a lot of the confrontations happened with them finding the pills. But I mean, I've never heard anything, just, apologetic and,
Right.
Sorry, and would usually be his kind of regular, kind of response.
Buster admitted he was aware of his father's struggles, but didn't grasp the full scope. Nobody did. Alec was a high-functioning addict. He won cases. He managed the law firm. He showed up for family dinners. The pills were hidden behind competence, behind success, behind a facade that fooled everyone, including his own son. Buster saw fragments, not the full picture. And now, he had to defend, not seeing more. He had to live with wondering if there were signs he missed, questions he should have asked, interventions he should have demanded. But how could he have known? How could anyone have known that the man who raised him, who took him hunting, who called him every day, was capable of such unthinkable violence? And then there was the smirk. In one of the most scrutinized moments of the trial, cameras captured Buster's face during graphic testimony about his brother's injuries. What happened next became a viral moment, a meme, a symbol used to question his humanity. But was it really a smirk? Or was it something else entirely?
15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. You want me to turn it over? Okay. Guilty verdict, signed by the forelady, 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, SC Code -16-23-0490, CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00594. The State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3/2/23.
Thank you.
During testimony describing Paul's catastrophic wounds, how he was shot twice with a shotgun, how his brain matter was found on the scene, Buster's face shifted. A micro-expression, a flicker of something. The internet exploded. He smirked. He's guilty too. He knows something. But here's what nobody talks about. Grief doesn't look the same on everyone. Trauma doesn't follow a script. Nervous laughter, inappropriate smiles, blank stares. These are all documented psychological responses to unbearable stress. They're called incongruent effect. The brain's attempt to protect itself from information it cannot process. Buster wasn't smirking at his brother's death. He was dissociating. He was hearing details no sibling should ever hear, in a room full of strangers, with cameras broadcasting his pain to millions. And instead of being allowed to break down, instead of being given grace, his face became evidence. His moment of fragility became proof of coldness. This is the cruelty of public grief. You're not allowed to react wrong. But there's no right way to react when the world is watching you mourn. While Alex Murdaugh sat in jail awaiting trial, he made over 100 phone calls. Calls to his brothers, calls to family members, and calls to Buster. These recordings, obtained through Freedom of Information requests, revealed a dynamic that was both heartbreaking and unsettling. In October 2021, just months after Maggie and Paul were killed, Alex made a call to Buster that left even seasoned investigators stunned. He wanted Buster to go back to Moselle, to hunt, on the very property where his mother and brother had been murdered.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah.
What you doing?
Nothing. At Greenfield.
Y'all hunting?
We're going to this afternoon.
Let me tell you what you ought to do, Buster. I think the damn feeders were full over there at Moselle. If you felt like going back there, I bet with nothing going on, I bet there's deer all over them things.
I mean, back. What's that going to do for me?
Kill a deer?
I'm not going hunting out there.
I don't blame you. I was just letting you know. Do you care if I let Jim do it?
Jim who?
Jim Griffin.
Oh, I let him hunt deer out there? What are you talking about?
I didn't know if you wanted to hunt doves out there. If you do, then I want you to do it. If not, then I'm going to let him do it. Do you want a dove hunt out there?
No.
Not at all.
Alex's voice came through the jail line. Let me tell you what you ought to do, Buster. I think the feeders were full over there at Moselle if you felt like going back there. I bet with nothing going on, I bet there's deer all over them things. Buster's response was immediate. What's that going to do for me? I'm not going hunting out there. But Alex persisted. He mentioned replanted sunflowers. Asked if Buster had any interest in hunting that field. The question wasn't casual. It was insistent. Some speculated Alex wanted Buster to unknowingly contaminate the crime scene with additional shell casings. Others believed he simply wanted control, even from behind bars. Either way, Buster refused. Then came a request so jarring, so emotionally manipulative, that it revealed just how much Alex treated his son not as a grieving survivor, but as a logistics coordinator for a life that no longer existed.
Nights are better.
Yeah, having a good day. I've been spending so much money in it, and it hurts me.
On what?
People's Christmas presents.
Well,
I mean, I got to buy a present for everybody.
well,
And it's a lot of people.
I'll tell you this, Bus.
What?
Hang on. We
Hello?
give people something that was Mom or Paul's. And I think people really like that.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to do that.
We'll see if I get out of here, which, like I say, I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. We'll see. They seem to be optimistic, but they were optimistic the first time too.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, I mean, I've already bought everybody something, so.
well, we'll talk about finances when I get out of here, but I'm gonna make sure you're okay.
Well, I mean, I make money,
I know.
and if I don't go back in the spring, then I'll continue to make more effectively.
I know. Talking about anyway, we'll get all that square. Talk to you when we're not on this phone being recorded.
In another call, Alec instructed Buster to distribute Maggie and Paul's belongings as Christmas gifts, not to preserve their memory, not to honor them, but to use their possessions as presents for others. Imagine being told to give away your mother's items, your brother's things, before you'd even had time to process their absence, before you'd been allowed to grieve. Buster was being asked to be everything at once: a grieving son, a loyal family member, a witness, a public figure, and now, a manager of death logistics. Alec's obsession with how the case was being covered revealed another uncomfortable truth. Even in jail, he was more concerned with reputation management than his son's emotional state. He wanted updates. He wanted control. And Buster, as always, was the one expected to deliver.
TV Friday, Bus. I saw John Marvin on there for just a second.
Dad, it was something ABC 2020. I didn't watch it.
Well, was it a new interview or was it from that old interview?
I would assume if it had him on TV, it had to be the old one. He has not gone on TV since.
He hasn't. 10-4. All right. Well, I mean, was it the same old stuff with a bunch of innuendo and false stuff, or were they being semi-truthful?
Dad, I'd love to be able to give you some insight, but I didn't watch it and I didn't seek out anything, any transcripts from it. I don't know. I know.
It ain't no big deal.
I would assume it's the same old thing. Brooklyn told me some stuff that was on it, and it was stuff that's wrong. So I mean, it's just that same old.
Stephen Smith and Gloria and all that bullshit.
I think it probably had to touch on that. I think this one hit maybe a little bit more on the boat wreck.
I gotcha.
I just know that there was some stuff that Brooklyn said that was said in the little show, and it's just stuff that's not important, but it just shows that if they are willing to state that in fact, that they just don't know what they're saying, because it's just stuff that's not true.
I understand. So are they still trying to say out there like there's some mystery surrounding Gloria's death about how she died?
Saying what now?
About how she died? Are they still trying to make some innuendo there?
About Gloria?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are they still saying anything about Stephen Smith, even though Andy Savage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody.
No connection?
Yeah, I don't think anybody took the heart.
Did Slayer ever come out and say there's no connection?
No, they
Even though
were
he
never.
told Andy Savage that?
No, Sled has not released anything. They didn't even release a statement about what was this most recent thing. There was something came out not long ago talking about how there's been like a breakthrough in evidence to do with like the homicides, and Sled wouldn't even come out and issue a statement saying that there has been no further evidence like gathered.
10-4.
So personally, I would not count on Sled to help in any way.
I was just curious. All right, my man. You get some rest, and what time you get on the road tomorrow?
About 8 a.m.
All right, I'll give you a call sometime when I can. Buster, what's going on with COVID out there? It must be going crazy.
It's this new variant. It's
Omni COVID or whatever.
Omicron.
Omicron.
Alec wanted to know how the media was portraying them, what people were saying, what documentaries were being made. He turned Buster into his eyes and ears on the outside. Not a son, an informant. In quieter moments, Alec described his life in jail, the food, the routine, the isolation. These calls had an almost casual tone, as if discussing mundane realities could erase the violence that put him there.
I don't know what's going on, but there's some big weekend where the Bloods and the Crips kill each other. So this is the first time I've been out of my thing in, I don't know, a while. It's been on lockdown all week. So I don't know when I'm going to get the call again. I just didn't want you to worry about me.
Okay. How do you know that this is a big weekend that gangs kill each other?
Because I asked a guy, I was like, we've been on lockdown since I mean, the only times I've been out of my cell were to go see Jim. The other day, and to go, I don't know, get some medical thing. And I was like, well, are we going to get out of our things today? And he's like, nah, this weekend, and he called it something. And I'm like, what is that? And he said, that's the big, something with the blood. And, you know, they fight, and, I don't know, kill each other. I don't know. I ain't seen no blood where I'm at, but I guess it's uniform across the board.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what they told me.
He complained about the food, described the monotony, asked about football games and family trips. On the surface, these conversations seemed normal. Father and son, staying connected. But underneath, there was something profoundly off. Alec never centered Buster's pain. He never asked, "How are you holding up?" The calls were always about him. Money was another constant theme. Even from jail, Alec was strategizing, moving assets, instructing Buster on financial decisions. Once again, the son became the executor of his father's crisis.
How you doing on finances?
Pretty slim, but it'll be getting better.
Well, listen here. Do you want me to tell Uncle John to give you, several $1,000s, and then I'll pay it back?
No, it's just I've just had expenses, like considering I had to change my medical insurance.
Well, we need to get John to pay for the storage facility and then let me pay him back.
Well, I don't understand how you would.
You need to be paying. But anyway, I mean, do you want me to get him to give you just, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 so you just have, and you don't have to worry about expenses?
No, because I've got that money. I mean, right now my bank account, I've got $10,000. A little bit more when I get.
Sure, like when you go play golf, you can, if you want to, get a shirt and have a drink and have drinks or whatever at the bar and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I mean, I've got stuff they can settle all that.
All right. Well, you just got to keep me posted because, I can get him to give you money and then pay him back. Okay. Well, you got to keep me posted and let me know, okay?
All right.
Everything else going okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
You want to take my clubs?
No, I just use mine. I don't know where yours are. I think yours are still in the Mercedes. It's a Slug.
Alec discussed selling assets before court-appointed receivers could freeze them. He talked about legal fees, property accounts. Buster, barely in his mid-20s, was being asked to navigate financial crimes he didn't commit, manage consequences he didn't create, all while trying to survive his own devastation. Perhaps the most unsettling calls were the ones where Alec laughed, where he made light of serious accusations, where he and Buster discussed economy airlines and gambling, as if none of this was happening, as if normalcy could be conjured through casual conversation.
I need people to talk, but I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. There's so many people that they don't have a freaking clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
I mean, nah, man, but I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
Yeah, and so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fella.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and called me a piece of and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
Okay. I mean, I don't really talk. I don't really talk to him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. I mean, what the does he know about WTOC?
Man, apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. I mean, it's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I mean, I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
I've allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it is what it is, It is what it is.
The laughter wasn't malicious. It was survival, but it was also deeply uncomfortable. Because when you're accused of murdering your wife and son, when your surviving son is trying to hold himself together, jokes feel wrong. Laughter feels like denial. And yet, maybe that's all they had left. A desperate attempt to feel human. After Alec was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, the first recorded call between father and son revealed just how much had changed, or perhaps how little.
I knew people would talk, but I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. There's so many people that they don't have a friggin' clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
I mean, nah, man, but I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
And so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fella.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and called me a piece of shit and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
Okay. Man, I don't really talk. I don't really talk to him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. I mean, what the does he know about WTOC?
Man, apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. I mean, it's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I mean, I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
I've allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it is what it is, It is what it is.
On May 16th, 2023, Alec called Buster from McCormick Correctional Institution. The call lasted 42 seconds. "Hey buddy," Alex said. "Hey, I don't have a whole lot of time. I just boarded a ferry to go back to Hilton Head Island from Dofusky Island." Buster replied, his voice hurried. "Yeah, I know, I've been trying to call. I was supposed to call you while you were with Jim about this meeting," Alex said, referring to his defense attorney, Jim Griffin. The call was choppy, disconnected. Buster couldn't understand his father. Alex said he'd leave word with Jim. Then, after a pause, "Love you." Buster hung up. It was the first time the public heard Alex's voice since his sentencing, and it revealed a relationship that had become transactional, distant, strained. Buster wasn't avoiding his father out of hatred. He was surviving, and survival meant boundaries. March 2nd, 2023. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Alex Murdaugh guilty on all counts. 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime, The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Guilty, 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 guilty. Alex showed little emotion. He stood still, his face unreadable. But behind him, Buster sat with his head in his hands. The cameras captured everything. The moment his father's fate was sealed. The moment any lingering hope for a different outcome vanished. Buster's world, already shattered, broke again. When the moment came for Alec to speak at his sentencing, he directed part of his statement toward Buster. It was a moment meant to be tender, a father reassuring his son. But for Buster, it was another weight added to an already unbearable load.
Buster, I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you. And Paul, I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media, and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you. And Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys.
The next day, March 3rd, Alex Murdaugh stood before the court for sentencing. The judge, Clifton Newman, called the case one of the most troubling he had ever seen. He spoke about the monster that Alec had become, suggesting that drugs had transformed him into someone capable of murdering his own family. Alec maintained his innocence. "I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Paul," he said, his voice breaking. He looked at Buster, told him he loved him, told him to stay strong, told him that the truth would come out eventually. But what truth? The jury had already decided. The evidence had been presented. The verdict was final. Alec was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was let out of the courtroom in handcuffs, escorted by officers, his legal career, his freedom, and his family all lost. Buster remained behind, the last Murdaugh, standing in a room that had dissected his entire family. Reporters swarmed outside. Cameras flashed. The world moved on to the next headline. But for Buster, there was no moving on. There was only survival. In the days that followed, Buster had to confront an unbearable reality. His father was a convicted murderer. His mother and brother were dead. His family name was synonymous with scandal. The property where he grew up, where he learned to hunt, where he spent holidays and summers, was being sold. Moselle, the 1,700-acre estate that had been in the family for generations, was auctioned off for $3.9 million to buyers who had no connection to the Murdaughs. Strangers would walk the land where Maggie and Paul died. And then, in a move that felt almost surreal, the family's belongings were auctioned off too. In March 2023, items from Moselle were put up for sale in Pembroke, Georgia. Furniture, hunting equipment, clothing, even Maggie's bicycle and Alex monogram tumblers. People showed up to buy pieces of the Murdaugh tragedy. One attendee said they were buying Christmas presents from the Murdaugh trial, souvenirs to remember the Low Country events. A couch sold for $14,000. A dartboard with Buster's name on it sold for $475. Animal mounts. Shotgun shell decorations. Everything tagged and priced and carried away. Buster received $530,000 from the estate sale. Not a fortune. Not enough to undo the damage. Just enough to start over. Somewhere far from the cameras, far from the courtroom, far from the memories that haunted every corner of that property. But the world wouldn't let him start over. Because even after the trial, even after the conviction, Buster's name kept surfacing in connection to another death. Stephen Smith. In the months following the trial, Buster tried to rebuild. He married his longtime girlfriend, Brooklyn White, in May 2025. The ceremony was small, private, held in Beaufort, South Carolina, far from the media circus. Brooklyn had stood by him through everything: the trial, the scrutiny, the loss. She was his anchor. They now live in Bluffton, South Carolina, keeping a low profile. He never returned to law school. He never went back to Moselle. The property was sold. The belongings auctioned off. Even Buster's childhood, his family's history, became items tagged and purchased by strangers. But the scrutiny never stopped. In fact, it intensified in ways Buster couldn't have anticipated. Because alongside the trial for Maggie and Paul's murders, another name kept resurfacing: Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith was a 19-year-old who was found dead in the middle of Sandy Run Road in Hampton County on July 8, 2015. His death was initially ruled a hit and run, but his family and investigators never believed that explanation. There were inconsistencies, no vehicle debris, injuries that didn't match a typical car accident. And then, rumors began circulating, rumors that connected Buster Murdaugh to Stephen's death. The rumors suggested that Buster and Stephen had been in a secret relationship, and that Stephen's death was somehow linked to protecting the Murdaugh family's reputation. Buster has always denied these allegations. He has never been charged, never been named a suspect, never even been officially questioned in connection to the case. His alibi placed him at the family beach house in Edisto Beach with his mother and brother on the night Stephen died. But in June 2021, when authorities reopened the investigation into Stephen's death, they cited evidence uncovered during the probe into Maggie and Paul's murders. Suddenly, Buster's name was everywhere again. Not because of facts, not because of charges, but because of speculation, internet theories, and true crime documentaries looking for the next shocking twist. In June 2024, Buster filed a defamation lawsuit against Netflix, Warner Brothers Discovery, and other media companies. The suit claims that documentaries like Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal, and Murdaugh Murders, Deadly Dynasty falsely implied he was involved in Stephen Smith's death through suggestive editing, ominous narration, and the omission of exculpatory facts. One documentary featured a young man with red hair carrying a baseball bat, an image meant to evoke Buster without directly naming him. Another included statements implying the Murdaughs, specifically Buster, were involved in Stephen's death to protect family secrets. The lawsuit alleges that Buster's reputation has been irreparably damaged and that he has suffered severe mental anguish. In April 2025, Buster filed an amended complaint expanding on his allegations and attempting to address perceived deficiencies in his initial filing. The media companies have filed motions to dismiss the case, arguing that they were reporting on matters of public interest and that Buster, as a public figure connected to a high-profile case, has a higher burden of proof. The case is ongoing. Buster is fighting to reclaim his name. But here's the impossible truth. When your last name carries the weight of murder, fraud, and corruption, no lawsuit can fully restore it. Buster didn't choose to be a Murdaugh. He didn't choose the crimes his father committed. He didn't choose to lose his mother and brother. And he certainly didn't choose to become a public figure whose every move is analyzed as evidence. Even Stephen Smith's mother, Sandy Smith, has stated publicly that she does not believe Buster was involved in her son's death. But that hasn't stopped the speculation. That hasn't stopped the documentaries. That hasn't stopped the online detectives who've decided Buster must be hiding something simply because his last name is Murdaugh. Buster's current job remains unconfirmed. He keeps his life private. He rarely speaks publicly. He's moved multiple times to escape media attention, from Hilton Head to Bluffton, always trying to stay one step ahead of the cameras. He lives with his wife and their dog, trying to build a normal life in the ruins of everything he lost. But normalcy feels impossible when your grief has been turned into entertainment. So here's what this case forces us to confront. What do we owe the children of monsters? What do we owe someone who loved a person the world hates? Buster sat behind his father every day of that trial. He testified in his defense. He took phone calls from jail. Does that make him complicit? Or does it make him a son who couldn't let go, even when letting go might have saved him? There's no right answer, because Buster's role was impossible from the start. If he supported his father, he was enabling a murderer. If he abandoned him, he was heartless. If he showed emotion, he was performing. If he stayed composed, he was cold. Every choice was wrong because the situation itself had no solution. Think about this. Buster lost his mother and brother in a single night. He attended 3 funerals in 1 week. He was forced to testify in a televised trial about weapons, finances, and family secrets he barely understood. He was accused of crimes he didn't commit. His grief was memed. His expressions analyzed. His silence weaponized. And through it all, he was expected to remain standing, remain loyal, remain human, while the world debated whether he deserved any of those things. Buster Murdaugh is not a hero, but he's not a villain either. He's a survivor of a tragedy so public, so brutal, that his pain was never allowed to be his own. He's a young man who inherited a legacy he didn't build, who carried accusations he didn't earn, who grieved under a microscope that magnified every imperfection. The truth is, we may never know what Buster truly thinks about his father's guilt. We may never know how he reconciles love and horror. And maybe that's not ours to know, because Buster Murdaugh doesn't owe us his grief. He doesn't owe us his certainty. He doesn't owe us an explanation for surviving when others didn't. What he deserves is what was stolen from him the moment those cameras turn on: privacy, dignity, the space to be more than Alex Murdaugh's son, the chance to grieve without a jury of millions deciding if he's doing it right. This is Dark Trail Files, and this was the story of the son who carried the weight, the brother who lost everything, the man the world decided to judge before they ever tried to understand. If this case made you question how we treat the families of the accused, how we consume tragedy, and how we measure grief, then share this video. Subscribe to the channel. And remember, behind every headline is a human being. And sometimes the cruelest punishment isn't a life sentence. It's being forced to live under the weight of someone else's crimes. Until next time.